The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Well, everybody, welcome to the SpotTrack.com podcast. Kevin Sylvester along with Paul Peck, Mike Giannetti. We'll get to the topics here in a second, but want to mention the Spot Track podcast presented by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment, empowering professional athletes and entertainers with the knowledge they need to make informed decisions about their finances and their wealth. Learn more. Visit morganstanley.com/GSE. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, LLC, member SIPC, and they are going to be calling Jacob deGrom.
Hell yeah.
Take care of that cash.
First phone call to make.
Yes. Well, and we're going to talk about deGrom and Gronk. We're starting with the GRs today, all right? Gronk and, I know it's deGrom.
A couple of 30-year-olds.
Yes, but let's talk about Jacob deGrom. Mike Giannetti. We're all Mets fans here, right?
He's not impartial on this one.
No, I'm going to say it up front. If we talk for 40 minutes about the Mets, I'm all for that right now.
Hey, I'm
we
with
are
you.
all Mets fans here, actually. We all go back to our childhood, and some still do.
Right. One of us here is more passionate than the other two, and that would be Mike when it comes to that. So, we were living 86.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe one of us was living 69.
No,
okay.
73 World Series, one of my first childhood sports memories. Mets and A's.
Nice.
That's kind of one of those things that you first remember watching with your dad and all that stuff, and starting to get old enough to get into sports and understand it. So,
all right. So 77 was my first one.
So let's talk numbers in a little bit, but I want to pose this question because I wonder if you saw this yesterday. It's kind of been hitting the waves here. Did you see Noah Syndergaard yesterday?
No.
Make his little press conference,
right?
Okay, so it was kind of a twofold thing, right? He gets up there. Here's what they're doing. They're leaving Port St. Lucie, and what they're doing is they're traveling to Syracuse, which is now the farm team for the Mets.
Yeah, for a workout, not a game, by the way.
It's an appearance, right?
It's an appearance.
Right.
Yes.
We got to pump up the new farm team and get some fans out and
sign some autographs.
Obligations, and then they're going somewhere, New York, I think. Then they're going to New York. Then they're going to Washington for the Thursday afternoon opener. So it's kind of like they're getting bounced around the East Coast here.
Sure.
So Syndergaard basically came on the mic and said, that's not ideal. That's not what championship teams do. So he kind of threw some shade at his own team, and then he turned that into, oh, and by the way, we should probably pay Jacob deGrom, right? Because this guy's been pretty damn good. So
sounds like Noah had a bad morning that day.
I think he's right about the bouncing around.
Well,
I agree.
I got to say this because we're talking about Gronk in a little bit here. It felt Gronkish the way he was saying this. You know what I mean? How there's guys that can say things negatively, but you still kind of love him for it.
Sure.
That's Syndergaard, and if you follow him on social media, he is kind of a darling. He's hysterical. He's sarcastic.
He looks like a dude who's going to say whatever. A live wire.
He looks like he acts sometimes, but then at other times, very educated with what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So you got to appreciate that.
He's probably speaking up, by the way, for the rest of the team.
No question.
My point is, he's now that guy. Where Gronk can do that too. Gronk could say something serious, and we'd all listen because we love listening to Gronk. And we would take it with a grain of salt, but we'd also laugh it off, which is what we're doing here. But look at, 12 hours later, Jacob deGrom's got $140 million. So, he knew something was coming and he wanted to get out in front of it, or he wanted to put his foot out for the rest of the rotation in the Mets and say, I know guys generally don't get paid here, and they don't. It's rare when you see major contracts, in the blue and orange. This was one that had to get done, and I'm glad he came out and said something because you don't have numbers like he has and get screwed around like this. You don't. Jacob deGrom, he's making himself a Hall of Famer in the last 3 years.
Well, how do you do as far as making money? Because before we started recording the show here, you were going over this because something didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And this year doesn't make sense to me.
This and next, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we're talking about Jacob deGrom and we're seeing what Kershaw is getting $30 million a year. Well, and I'm thinking that's the number for deGrom.
Let's compare this structurally to the NFL. We can stay with the Patriots even. The reason Tom Brady always does 2-year deals that come every 2-3 years is because he gets a nice big fat signing bonus of $25 to $30 million that he gets to put in his bank account and never have to use, right? But that's sort of the ploy. Keep the cap low, keep a ton of cash up front. Well, you would think with a 30-year-old guy like deGrom, one of the trade-offs would be, I'll take a deal that's not $35 million a year, which he didn't do, but I need a ton of cash now.
Right.
I need some insurance
with the
policy
history
on
of the
this
Mets.
elbow.
That's a very smart decision.
But they didn't.
That's right.
So he was signed to a $17 million arbitration contract for this year.
Right.
That's exactly what he's going to make in 2019. He's going to make a $7 million salary with a $10 million signing bonus. and then he's going to bump that up to $23 million next year. So we're talking about the best pitcher in the National League, arguably in all of baseball. No reason to believe he's gonna step down from that over the next 2-3 years because of this is sort of his prime now. He was a late bloomer. He got to the majors like age 26, 27. So financially speaking, he's in his prime even though he's older. But $40 million over 2 years for the best pitcher in baseball, and this is the big contract.
Right.
There's not another one coming.
No,
you know what I
no,
mean?
you're
this
right.
isn't like the sophomore contract. This is the contract. So structurally speaking, he took a hell of a pay cut to sign this deal.
So cash-wise, and this is all at SpotTrack.com, $17 million in cash this year.
Yeah.
Right? $10 million in a signing bonus.
Right.
All right. So, and Robert Raiola will tell us,
he's getting killed in New York.
He's getting killed in New York.
Even with the bonus.
Yeah, it's probably $6 million that he's getting. $23 million next year in cash.
Yeah.
$33.5 million.
So it gets good at like age
2021.
33, 34 for him.
All right, but my question is this, and maybe I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
All right. He already agreed. Arbitration deal $17 million this year.
Yeah.
So he was already going to make $17 million.
He's making no new money.
Right. That's what That's my point. Like, wait a second. Yes, you got raises coming the next 5 years, and you start making big money. Although it does decrease in the last 2 years of the deal, but it's still in the $30 million. So he'll be okay. I'm just thinking. But you got a signing bonus of money you already had coming.
That's right. All of your compensation this year was already accounted
Already
for.
happening.
So it's like an extension that starts next year, which is common, except this is not a common player. Like I meant, that's why I prefaced it the way I did. This is the best pitcher in baseball who needed it. Now let's say that he didn't need a contract, and this is the leverage point the Mets had. He was under team control for 2 more years, 19 and 20. So he's not hitting free agency. So the urgency was, we've got to give this guy his due, and that's leverage to the Mets, and that's sort of why these numbers look this way.
Okay,
but even if you're the Mets, right? And I know the Mets don't like to throw money around. Not many teams do these days. But if you're the Mets and you see what's happening with baseball and all sports and how these careers are shrinking and how at age 30, 31, 32, it's a what if, right? It's a maybe for a lot, and especially for pitchers. Any moment in time, that thing pops, right? Why wouldn't you front load this deal for him?
Yes.
Why wouldn't deGrom want it that way?
Yes, right. Thank you.
I guess my point is the Mets clearly had more leverage than we're all leading on to.
Yeah.
Because of how this is structured.
My joke about
But why would they want to pay him $34 million at age 33, 34? If they didn't have to. If they could have flipped this deal on its end is my point.
Maybe they may.
Right? Pay $70 million over the next 2 years.
No.
And then decrease.
You know why? Here's my theory. Sorry, Met fan, but they're going to move him.
Okay, we're going to get to that.
Right.
That is actually the point of this podcast. So
yeah, okay.
Very, very nice.
Yes.
Ghost transition there.
I'm just saying, like, if I'm the Mets, this is a great deal for me because I get my star pitcher and I get him signed. I show the rest of the team we will pay guys. I don't have to pay a lot of cash up front because I don't have a lot of cash.
Wait, I got to push
front.
back on you, though.
Okay, push back on me.
A movable deal would be front-loaded.
It should be.
A movable deal would be, we're going to pay you for the 2 years, and we're going to pay you good money so you're happy, but then we're going to dump those salaries down $4 or $5 million so that you're easily tradable.
I agree with you on that notion, except for they don't want to pay out all the cash.
Right? That is the motto of the Mets.
And when you move them across, the river, across town,
yeah.
Who cares?
See, you brought up the point, Kevin, that I keep thinking of, and Mike knows this. The Mets operate differently than a lot of teams. Partly, they're still having effects of the Madoff scandal. They don't have the kind of cash that you would expect a big market money team in New York to have. Still. So they always operate differently. I mean, it's not really the best comparison, but go back to the whole Bobby Bonilla thing. That's why they did the way they did, that he's still getting paid till he's 70. So I think you have to understand the Mets' business model always seems to be different.
I have difficulty still believing that's the case because that was 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, longer than that.
All right, so listen, you've got a baseball contract in place. They've got their own network that they're on. They're New York, for crying out loud. You're the Mets.
Which is why I used the word different.
I went down the same path you did last night when all this, because I was actually ready to write a show about how they should sign Jacob deGrom, and these are the reasons. So that had to go away. and I started to dive into the valuations of the teams, the Forbes valuations. Guess where the Mets are?
Well, they've got to be top 10.
I was going to say 5 to
6.
10 would have been my guess.
Just because of New York.
Hey, I'm not saying that I understand. So my question is, why do they seem to be operating this with a tin cup out in front of Citi Field?
Exactly.
Why?
There's just a mantra among that ownership, right? This is
Maybe
just
they
the way
got
the ownership.
scared.
Yep.
Maybe they got scared by what happened.
Let's be honest.
And the Wilpons have never been sort of the biggest, richest, people on the block for having owned a New York team. That their own net wealth has never been equivalent to a lot of other owners.
Aren't they? We have Wilpon, but who's the other guy there? It's,
they brought the TV and
Katz,
publishing guy in.
Katz, right?
Yeah.
He wants to sell. Right? Isn't there rumors he wants to sell?
Great day.
I'm just saying, and I have to think there's got to be a lot of people who'll be interested in owning the Mets.
Or the Wilpons are trying to figure out how to buy him out so they don't have to bring other partners in.
Any kind of change would be positive for me. I'd love to see this team be swinging bigger. But you mentioned they've been burned. They've also been burned in the last year and a half when they extended Yoenis Cespedes at $27.5 million a year for 3 years.
Maybe why they have a new general manager.
And he can barely walk down the stairs right now. I mean, there's recency bias to all this too.
The other dynamic with the Mets is they're always competing with the Yankees,
but they shouldn't be.
But they always have, and the Cespedes signing was another example.
But that's just for the back page.
I know, but you're always competing with the bigger, stronger, better, wealthier neighbor on the block, and frankly, more successful neighbor on the block. And I think that's prompted the Mets over the years to make a lot of bad decisions. Mm-hmm. Because they're, oh my God, we need to grab the attention back, the back page, the whatever it is. I think that the financial issues and that competition with the Yankees has always clouded the Mets' decisions.
Here's the fascinating thing with the Mets to me is they have the arms.
Yes. They have had the arms.
Right, and have had the arms, right? I mean, and they've had fairly recent success.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it wasn't too long ago.
2015 World Series, yeah.
Yes. So how they screwed that up.
Isn't that what every team is trying to do is have the arms, right?
That's
Isn't that what baseball's all about?
And because of their money issues, I don't know. I don't know what their cash is like. It's like the Raiders in football, right?
I think it's probably a lot closer to the Raiders in football. Then that's a great comparison,
right? I mean, the structure of this contract says me everything. Yeah, we don't have a ton of cash on hand.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. I guess that's why it took so long for Jacob deGrom to get this done. Right? He probably wanted to sign this thing 2 months ago, and the Mets just basically said we can't physically do it, right? Because they just. You got to remember, they just had a heck of an offseason here. I mean, they acquired 6 new starters across the lineup. I mean, they're going to be a brand new team. A lot of people actually like how this looks, myself included. But to me, this had to happen. So, whatever needed to happen financially, move some cash around, however they're going to do it, hopefully legally this time, by the way. But whatever needed to happen, this move had to get done. And it sort of leads into where I want to go, which is, baseball's stupid money is still stupid, but it's not stupid because it's big. It's stupid because of how it's being spent. And I don't understand. I'm worried where we're going. And maybe I shouldn't be because we've talked quite a lot, and you kind of alluded to it before, Kevin. Is it a good thing that baseball's going towards massively trading everybody? And that's how the game operates. It's sort of going towards hockey. I know that's kind of your home.
Well, it was for a while. Yeah, sure.
But hockey sort of still operates this way,
yes.
Right? You sign these big deals that look terrible on paper, and they are terrible. They're terrible contracts except for the player. And the point is, we only need this guy for a couple of years, and then we'll move on from him, right? And if we've got to split some of the salary cap, we'll do that. But
hang on to some money when you trade a guy, yeah.
But there's almost always a second option in place when you're doing those deals in hockey. And the trade deadline is furious. I mean, it's bigger than any free agency probably could ever be. That's just how it operates in hockey, and it's going to stay that way until the new CBA maybe comes forward with some changes. But
did you ever play the game Kick the Can when you were a kid?
Of course,
Paul?
Yeah,
Kick the Can,
exactly.
Kick it,
right.
Keep
that's
it down the road.
That's how the Saints operate their salary cap.
Okay, to me that's how every NHL salary cap.
Well, and aren't we starting to see the NFL move a little bit towards that way too?
Slowly. Here's the difference. The NFL is getting there because the young players are sticking. That never happened. We've had this argument, really,
Yes.
as how quarterbacks needed years to wait. That's done.
Right.
I think it's done, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even the guys who aren't great are good enough. So as long as that continues, and if you're going to have 22-year-old starting quarterbacks and 21-year-old running backs and maybe 23-year-old wide receivers leading your teams, we're going to get there. We're going to get to a point where veteran contracts.
When they get to be 26, you're going to be looking to deal them.
Yeah, like the Aaron Rodgers contracts might be gone if that continues, right? Because you won't need that deal.
Right.
You'll need a sophomore deal on your guy.
And that'll be the end of it.
And you'll trade him 4 years into it, or you'll release him, and you'll be done. Yep. So that's another whole terrifying situation that's coming for your 28-year-old NFL players. But I think we're here with baseball. I think we're here. And the only thing saving it, and it's part of the stupid money comment I made, is this ridiculous 6-year rookie scale in baseball. If not for that, and I hate it, but I think they need it. I still think they need it because who are the best players in the game, right? They're not 30.
No.
Outside of deGrom, they're not 30.
They're 25 to 30.
Yeah, that's
Maybe
right.
Even 23 to 30.
That's right. And what we just saw were 25 extensions in the last couple of months here. Extensions for those players, those upper 20s, maybe middle 20 players. A couple of them not even 20 who would even play in the base. Eloy Jimenez, have you heard this story? Chicago White Sox prospect. He's their big prospect. He has never played in the Major League Baseball. They just signed him to a 6-year, $43 million extension. He's never played.
Right.
They're just doing this because they want to get it locked in now.
Didn't the Indians take this approach years ago?
Jose Ramirez,
where they
Kluber.
signed a lot of guys to good contracts, and it was super smart, wasn't it?
It's incredibly smart, and we all couldn't believe. None of us understood why the players did it, and I'm still at that point. But I'm starting to hash it out, and that's sort of the point of this conversation. And the Indians actually are the reason I'm bringing this up. Big news yesterday that the Indians owner, who is a whole nother Will Pondon himself, worse. He basically came out and said, because the questions have been surrounding Francisco Lindor, who's just a monster of a player. He's young, shortstop. He does everything. Defense, everything. Anything you want out of a player. He's charismatic. He's going to be $300 million whenever he wants it. And the Indians owner basically got out in front of it and said, enjoy him while he's here. Literally his words. Right. Enjoy him for 3 years. We've got him under control. And he said the word control, which is, boy, that's a word. That's a word, right?
Bad word.
It is the right word, financially speaking, but it is a word. Right?
He's 25. He's under arbitration, right?
He's finally making $10 million.
10-5.
After a couple of $500,000 years. My point is, if this system didn't exist, right? If he wasn't controlled for 3 years, which is exactly how the Indians are approaching this, he would be making $350 million right now. Because there would be a team that would look at him and say, oh, no, we're not waiting. Because they're not waiting on their 20-year-olds, is my point.
Sure.
Right? We just saw an example of, Cy Young candidates, Luis Severino, Blake Snell, Aaron Nola. They all got deals around $10 million a year, right? Their sophomore deals are happening at age 24, 25, 26, and they're, in comparison, they're nothing deals. They're nothing. I get it. From a player standpoint, when you're making $500,000 and you're coming off of 2 years in the minors, when you're making $30,000, right? That's where we are. That's the progression that you take as a baseball player right now. When somebody asks you for $40 million to play 4 years of baseball, it sounds great. Is free agency just going away? We've had 2 terrible free agency years, and even if you put Harper and Machado in this conversation, in both instances, I think they're not great deals.
It'll never go away because there'll always be desperate teams that will be willing to spend stupidly because of pressure on front office people or fan pressure. So it'll never go away, but it'll become what the NFL free agency is going to become, which is generally a lot of overpaid money to overaged, mediocre players.
But my point is, and Kevin really started to say this before, my point is, if you're the Cleveland Indians, just to have that example, and obviously Mookie Betts with Boston's another great example, and that's coming up a little sooner here, why would you let anybody walk?
You wouldn't. No, you shouldn't.
Even if you have to wrap it in a bow that looks like $400 million, you sign that deal. You're not paying $400 million for Mookie Betts. You're paying whatever the next 3 years cost you.
Correct.
Right? Or the next 4 years cost you. So you structure the deal how you can afford it. You make it look great for the agent, for the player, and that's money he's going to make somewhere.
It's a calculated gamble that
it is, but it isn't.
Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Dodgers.
Right? I did some research this morning on the Dodgers. They have been doing this for over a decade. They acquire your player.
Right.
Because they can afford the back end of those contracts. And that's when those players are most ready to win. And there's a specific role that they need. It's the Houston Astros, Justin Verlander situation to a T. That is the perfect example of this. And it worked immediately. So that's what teams are trying to foster now. But that's where we're going, right? We're going to where those players should never have to get to free agency because the teams should just be smart enough to know, we'll just look at Harper just signed a deal $10 million under his value essentially in Philadelphia. It's tradable tomorrow. It's already tradable, right? I mean, it is the most tradable mega contract maybe in the history of sports. It just is. And all of the deals this year, Mike Trout included, are tradable. So if the best player by times 3 in Mike Trout signs a deal that didn't really blow anybody out of the water, right? It's sort of just right in line and a little bit above the rest of them, then nobody's untradeable. Nobody.
The fascinating thing to me is, so you look at the money involved.
Oh, it's stupid. I know.
Right? I mean, the money overall, but where do the teams get the money?
Right.
Where does it come from? Let's look at the Mets, for example.
Yeah.
All right. Their payroll this year is going to be, where are they? They're 10th, right? 10th in spending.
Yeah.
I'm going by this website, spottrack.com.
Yeah.
Well, $153 million. Let's round it up.
Around there, yeah.
All right. So let's say they draw 3 million fans, the Citi Field. 3 million fans there. Just in tickets, I'll just throw an average price. Let's say it's $30. It's $90 million.
Yeah.
Right, in gate revenue. That's just for them to keep.
Add a beer and a hot dog.
Add a beer and a hot dog. Add cities. The sponsorships also, and then add all the media they get. Right, they're making it. They're making the money.
Yeah.
There isn't, and that's not just that's player payroll. That doesn't include all the other payrolls.
Their revenue last year was about $340 million. The Mets.
That's incredible, right?
And they're one of the lowest in the league.
Right.
That's incredible.
I'm serious.
Right.
The Yankees made $620 million last year.
That's gross revenue,
and they just bought their TV station back. So that's going to probably triple because they've got Amazon on their side now. So
right.
I mean, it's all going up. It's all going up.
It's so funny. We talk so much about big market versus small market, and here's a big market team that literally
a mile and a
operates
half
like
away.
The Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, they're a mile and a half away from the biggest one in the
crazy.
world. Yeah, yep. But
because I was looking at I saw a tweet. Nashville, maybe are they ready for Major League Baseball? I'm like, they can't afford Major League Baseball in Nashville. They're going to be Tampa, right? I mean, he spends $55 million. No, and they don't keep anybody. They're never going to be good. They were good once, right? The Rays were good once.
Actually, they're good.
They were good for a good stretch there.
Actually, they won 90 games last year.
I was just say they were good for a stretch where they were
not good enough.
They're
not good enough.
And might never be.
And
you're a Rays fan, you got no hope.
Competing with.
Yeah, because of the divisions.
Put them in the AL Central, and you'd be talking about them differently.
For sure.
Okay, fine. But you know what? I don't want to see the Rays in the playoffs. So, because you know why? I don't know anybody who plays on the Rays.
But let me put that to you, because let's go back to the Angels.
And it's not the way it should be.
The Angels and the Mets are very, very close. They're 6th and 8th in revenue. Mets made $336. The Angels $334 last year. So this is a perfect little comparison.
But as the secondary teams in those markets,
that's right.
Yankees and Dodgers are the kings.
Perfect
out there.
And one has maybe the best pitcher, and one has maybe the best position player. And
right.
Both had to get contracts done this year. Didn't have to, but they were alluded to that point. I'm a firm believer. Look, at $426 million is an unbelievable number, and we talked about it in length on our last show. But it isn't enough. And is the point that they just don't make enough revenue to afford that much money up front? Is that the point?
I think that's totally
sure.
Because it is a tradable contract. There is a point where he could turn Antonio Brown in 4 years and say, "I got to get the hell out of here. All right, I got to go to the Chicago Cubs and win a World Series or wherever it's going to be at that window." But at $36 million a year in 4 years,
he's
going to be in the middle of the top 10 somewhere. I mean, it's going to be. Oh, Mike Trout's at that number. Give me him tomorrow.
Sure,
right. And the point I'm trying to make is if he's really as generational as he is, and he is. I mean, every stat is way above everything else. He's an incredible guy. He's going to work his butt off for his entire life. That guy should get a contract that is immovable, right? If it exists, if an immovable contract exists, it should be Mike Trout. It should be $50 million.
But that's not a good way to do business. If I owned a team, I would want to have all my contracts be movable. I would not want to listen. I want the guy locked down, but hey, stuff happens. The oil well dries up sometimes. I would want to have movable contracts. It's anything in business. You need to be fluid.
Let's get back to that point then. Is it good for baseball if it goes towards hocky? Is it good for all these sports that we're going that way? Outside of basketball, which is going the exact opposite way.
I think it's good for interest because I think it generates
trade versus free agency.
Specifically for what pro sports has become and where they get a lot of their money from. It's from content. And discussion contents like this are great for sports. Are great for the Yankees who just bought their network back. Right?
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if fans are more interested and excited by all the off-season talk than they are about the season and the games themselves.
Sure they are. Hot stove. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the NFL. The NFL has mastered the ability to stay front and center even when they don't play any games. The draft is the ultimate example of absolutely nothing happens, but every 32 teams fans are fired up, excited, and the thing gets ridiculous ratings to watch a guy walk across the stage.
I guess that's what free agency is all about, too.
It is.
Right? Football. Are we going to get Antonio Brown? Are they going to trade him to him? Where's Le'Veon Bell going? Are we going to get this guy, that guy? Wow, who did we get here? Never heard of this offensive lineman, but, man, I can't wait for him to go.
I can't wait to see him. I'm going to go buy his jersey.
He's a swing tackle. Can't wait to watch a swing tackle in training camp. He's a freaking backup. All right, sorry.
Let me narrow this, though, a little bit. Right?
Please do.
Because I guess the point I'm trying to hammer on is, let's say Mookie Betts does sign a $400 million extension with the Red Sox.
Right.
And let's say it's front-loaded to the first 4 years, and then it's heavily tradable after that. And he is traded. He's traded at age 32 to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Okay.
And the rest of it was just fluff.
Sure.
Right? And that's the word I want to use because I use it with the NFL often. Are we going to get there? Are we getting to a point now where it's set in stone? I'm the general manager of the Boston Red Sox. I'm Dave Dombrowski, and who is a money guy. He's a money pincher guy. Right? He knows where to push his dollars, but he knows where to stop pushing too.
Sure.
Is he going to be the one that figures this out? He pretty much did it with JD Martinez. Is he going to be the one that figures this out? That I can make this thing look like 10 years and make him the happiest guy in the world, but he's gone in 4. And I'm going to structure it that way, and we're going to get something for nothing out of this in the long run anyway. I do think that's fine for baseball, but as a baseball fan, because there's a point in hockey.
Well, this is why you exist.
We live in a hockey town.
Right.
Do you even bother buying a Sabres jersey?
You should never bother buying.
I mean, we signed our best player to like an 8-year deal, right? Is he going to be gone in 4?
I
think he might.
I just had this discussion with my 9-year-old last night.
Yeah.
He wants a Jeff Skinner jersey. I go, listen, buddy.
Ooh, pump the brakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Free agency's coming.
Bingo. I said, we have no idea Skinner's going to be on the team next year. He's like, oh, how could they get rid of him? I go, he may want to get rid of them. He's going to be a free agent.
And as a fan, and as somebody who follows the game or reports on the game, isn't it going to become intolerable if every single player is tradable and possibly will be traded?
Sure. Well, all right. So let's talk about Eichel real quick because you're talking about Jack Eichel here in Buffalo. So he signs that contract. Yeah. Of course he's going to sign that contract. Someone's going to give you $80 million, you take $80 million.
Yeah.
Right? So he signs it. Everybody like, well, that's good because, he'd want to go play for the Bruins. He still may want to go play for the Bruins someday. Maybe on his next contract, or maybe he is traded at some point. Look at the deal that was signed before Jack Eichel. Ryan O'Reilly, a massive contract, $7.5 million, and guess what? Played a couple of years. They were able to move him to the St. Louis Blues. Every contract in the National Hockey League is movable because they're slotted.
Point in case. That's right.
They're slotted. And that's okay.
Is it?
It's okay.
10 years ago, Jack Eichel signs that contract, and we as a city are assuming he's a Sabre for life.
Sure.
Right? You just assume, like, oh, that's our franchise guy. He's going to be we all go buy the jerseys because he's here forever. That's gone. Are we fine with that?
Well, I think you better start being fine
gone.
with it. I think, yeah.
Well, and it's gone. I think it's gone in baseball, is my point.
I think
it's gone in baseball. Mike Trout is probably favored to be traded in the next 4 years. Favored
to be traded.
By
Yeah, sure,
by 2023,
I can see that.
I bet his odds are better that he'll be traded than stays.
Here's the reason why.
Jack Eichel's already the 8th highest average paid player in hockey, by the way, after signing that deal 2 years ago.
Here's the reason.
It goes quick.
Here's the reason why it works. Will work in baseball. The team gets a save face because they sign the player. Look, we signed the guy.
It looks great, right?
Hey, you know what? 4 years, we're not winning. This doesn't work out. We've got to rebuild. We've got to use. We love him, but we've got to let him go.
Yeah,
it works out, and that's business. It works out that way. Listen, the fans in the end, and this is why it works, Mike. The fans in the end, I'll use your Mookie Betts Red Sox. They root for the B.
That's right.
Right? They root for the B.
That's right.
In Buffalo, they root for the the cross swords. Right? They root for the Sabres. They root for the emblem when it comes to that. As tough as it is sometimes in this town. With the Mets, you're going to root for the Mets.
I mean, look,
right?
There's no better example of this in the past 5 years than Giancarlo Stanton. The Miami Marlins were never going to pay him $325 million. They didn't even pay their payroll over 5 years that much.
Right.
Literally. They pay like $100 million a year at most.
And you want to think of a team that should be thriving, right? You're in a non-tax income state. You're in Miami, for crying out loud.
You're in a state where people who have come from other countries where they love
the international.
I was going to say,
that's right.
Yes, the international population they have there that loves baseball.
It's crazy, right?
Right.
Lowest revenue in the league.
That's incredible to me.
Yeah.
Let me look.
Just
second lowest to Tampa. So there you go. Florida.
Well, that's the snowbirds, right? Because they all go back to New York and Boston.
That's right.
And those are the teams that's a part of it, right? A large population in Florida.
They don't root for the Marlins. They root for the Yankees, and then they'll go to a Marlins game when the Yankees play down there.
That's why nobody goes to Florida Panther games.
We've seen that across some. Remember, Jacksonville is in the NFL is kind of dealt with that as well too.
Yes.
That there are a lot of people that are not, that they're from other places that won't root. They may live in Ponte Vedra Beach, but they're Browns fans because they came from Ohio.
That's turning around a lot. There's a lot
because
of
time has created another generation of younger fans.
And they've got Nick Foles. They've got Nick Foles, which they wouldn't have got without free agency.
I don't know why.
They could have traded for him.
I'm not a jersey wearer or buyer. I don't know why anybody would ever buy one.
It's getting tough, right?
You know, there was a company that came out with a couple years ago with like an exchange thing.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a Velcro. It was like an exchange. You could get a jersey like every month and send it back and get another one. I thought that was brilliant. I don't know why it didn't work out. But why would you spend $250 on a jersey now? The worst decision you could ever make.
You know, this happened. I can't even tell you how many times this happened. You know, our intermission set when I did Sabres television was right there in the 200 level of the arena, and fans could walk by, come up. It was great. You get to interact with the fans. I cannot tell you how many parents with their kid came up to me. Hey, my kid wants a jersey. Which player should I get? And I would tell them one of two because they signed big deals. Get a Vanek or Tyler Myers. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Vanek's been the most traded guy since then in the NHL, and Tyler Myers gets shipped to Winnipeg, and I'm like,
18 months later.
Oh my gosh! Wow! Right?
So
sorry.
I always think back to all time.
Well, I was just saying, now how about you buy a Jack Eichel jersey and then he changes his damn number?
Yeah. I always think back to one of the all-time great Met fans and Jerry Seinfeld and his Root for Laundry.
That's right.
Bit. And that was like 15 years ago he did that bit. Could that not be more true than what it is now? You can't root for players. You have to root for the team or you root for the laundry.
So I want to put a bow on this with this comment, and it's going to go back to football. We sort of need to know if this is successful before it gets big, right? I mean, it's like I said, the Dodgers and those teams have been doing this for a while. I mean, they've been poaching veterans off other teams who can't afford to keep paying those players and filling their holes that way, rather than having to build up a prospect. I mean, now they've obviously got both now. They've got young kids and things like that, and that's the real way to do it. That's what we want to see. We want to see a mixture. But the Oakland Raiders have a chance here to make a statement, right? This Antonio Brown deal, call it what you will, he's 30, right? Is he the second best wide receiver in football? Could we agree on that?
Sure.
Is he maybe the first, though?
Maybe.
I'd put Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, and him maybe in like a triage. Is that fair?
Yeah. Although Brown's numbers, I believe, are the best of the three.
I think so. That's what I mean. So they acquired the best wide receiver in football for what? A third?
Yeah.
A third? At the end of the day, I think it was a third-round pick.
Yeah.
Everything else kind of washed out with their other moves. If this works, this becomes the new norm. We live in Buffalo. I've been hammering this point with the Bills all offseason. that there are wide receivers to get. And you don't have to necessarily take one at number 9 overall or overpay for a second-tier player in free agency. These all allude back to the baseball conversation we just had.
They
right?
already did that, by the way.
Well, not really.
Cole Beasley.
There's still a move to be made.
Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley.
All right, let's put that up.
Nice. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
If Antonio Brown wanted to come to Buffalo, that's a better move.
Absolutely.
Right?
No question.
For a third-round pick.
No question.
Here's what the Raiders have done. They have brought in a guaranteed number 1 wide receiver, given him top wide receiver money, which is something you do. It's just something you do. But they've only given up a third-round pick. And if we're weighing, the right way to do this is to value all of the assets separately, right? So your draft picks, your free agent signings, your current extensions, they all hold weight within a GM's lap. I'm going to guess a third-round pick is about lower tier,
pretty low, right?
of an asset to an NFL team right
question.
now, right?
Right at the tail end of that top 100.
And don't you think if all 32 teams had the chance, or all 31 teams had a chance to offer a third-round pick for Antonio Brown, and they just had to give him $30 million more guaranteed, I think they're all doing it.
Well,
is my point.
But you're not factoring in the off the field things that come with Antonio Brown.
But who cares?
Yeah, but you got to
only
care.
3
You have
years.
to care to some degree.
I disagree because it's not an 8-year deal. It's not these long-term
Yeah, but he
franchise.
could blow your team up in 1 year.
But they kind of already did that.
Well,
right? They were kind of at rock bottom, and this is almost like guaranteed we're going to be better for a third-round pick. And my point is, if that's where the other sports are going towards, then that's got to get better. Like, Antonio Brown's got to be worth a first-round pick, right? If Mookie Betts is going to get traded in 4 years, he's got to be worth an absolute haul, right?
Amari Cooper was worth the first.
That's right.
Right?
That's
Antonio
right. And
Brown's
is that
worth
just
a
age?
third.
Is that just 4 years?
Age and
That's
contract. Age and contract.
No, Antonio.
Well, they had to sign
he
Brown to a contract.
I'm drawing a blank here. Amari Cooper is going to need $100 million next year. I mean, he's going to need it.
Right.
So if that's what these trades are valuing out at right now, then of course teams are going to take advantage of that. So that's got to get better. If free agency is going to die, which it's doing, it's dying. I mean, baseball free agency, football free agency are dying. Hockey's never really had one. Nobody ever gets to free agency in hockey unless you're, coming off an injury or just a second or third tier player, really. And that's sort of, I think, where things are headed with these other sports. But if the trades aren't getting more impactful, right? Like, is there anything more important than a first-round pick in football right now?
No.
Knowing what we know and seeing where the league is going.
Right.
I get it. Teams won't give it up. But Antonio Brown, if Antonio Brown, even at 30, can't garner a second, then that system's broken, in my opinion. It's broken. That's because if baseball's going there, if Mike Trout's going to be tradable and Mookie Betts is going to be tradable and Giancarlo Stanton was already tradable, right? And the Marlins aren't that much better after trading Giancarlo Stanton.
They're not.
Right? They didn't get enough to immediately become better from a Yankees farm team. So if that's the way these leagues want to operate, and if they want to do these mid-season trades and these off-season moves, like a ton of teams have chosen to do, that's got to get better. It's got to mean more for what you're getting in return for these massive players. Because if the contracts are diminishing because they need to be movable, then what you're getting for those players to move them has to become way, way, way better. And Antonio Brown is sort of the test case for this.
All right, let's talk about Gronk.
Yeah,
with the Patriots.
Player who didn't move.
Player who did.
I think he could have.
Well,
there were some rumblings about that. Did you remember that?
They almost tried to trade him to Detroit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right.
And he tried to retire.
That's right. And so he retires via Instagram.
Yeah.
I mean, how 2019. He retires via Instagram. Although his agent did say, hey, if Tom Brady
Left the
called
door
him
open.
up, right?
Sure did.
If Tom calls him up and says, hey, we need something, we really need you, come on back. And frankly, you look at his season last year, he showed up for the playoffs. Right?
But I think they did that on purpose.
Yeah. Sure.
I know what you said, Kevin. I think to some degree that was the plan to have him show up for the playoffs. I don't want to knock on Gronk. I think that was very smartly done by the Patriots, knowing that with all his injuries and that they couldn't get 20 games out of him or 19 games or whatever, 8 games they had to play out of him.
Right.
So they kind of shut him down for most of the middle of the regular season and let him heal up and turned him on when they needed him to.
Which was smart because of all the injuries that he's had. And you looked how he performed in the playoffs.
He made arguably 2 of the most important plays in their Super Bowl run.
Not only that, but his blocking. His blocking
that's his
was
legacy
incredible,
too,
right?
and that's his legacy. His legacy was in the age where tight ends are essentially overstuffed wide receivers by nature of the way the spread offenses have taken over. Gronk was the throwback to the guy who was 65% receiver, 35% blocker. Most guys are 80-20 now,
right.
if you're lucky. That's what made him great. Some of the comments on some of the over the course of the day yesterday on Monday when he retired was guys who played against him said he was ferocious as a blocker. He's one of the toughest guys they ever had to face as a blocker. You never hear that said about tight ends. That was his legacy. And frankly, that's a little bit of a surprise because coming out of college already with an injury history, nobody really knew how physical he was really going to be.
And he leaves as... he's a Hall of Fame tight end. I don't think there's any question about that.
No question.
But what does it do to the Patriots cap-wise, retirement-wise? And how much money do you think, if he were physically able, how much money is he leaving on the table, Mike? Not just this year, but another contract.
Yeah, he was set to make about $9.5 million cash this year, so that's what the Patriots will save. It's about $2 million at dead cap is all, so it's a semantics move for the Patriots, obviously. He ranks 7th all time among finances for tight ends. It's just because he had a shorter career, right? Witten and Gonzalez, those guys played forever. Antonio Gates forever.
Played 9 years.
9 years. So he's a little under Greg Olsen, which is a little interesting because I think their careers kind of align a little bit. Maybe
salary-wise, you mean?
Yeah, Olsen actually made $60 million, and Gronk's at 53 and change.
Yeah,
so
Olsen's had some injury history
and
equal.
Jimmy Graham's a little more than him as well. So he wasn't exactly. He sort of signed longer-term deals and restructured a little bit, but he never really cashed in 2 times on big deals. That's probably just a victim of being with the Patriots, right?
He's going right to the Monday Night Football booth, right?
Oh my God!
Like we have Gronk.
I have not heard that.
We have Gronk.
I have not heard that.
Come on.
Listen,
really?
It's Gronk. You think about it.
He's going right to the WWE, or he's going right to taking whatever action movie roles The Rock can't do.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I know people have said that, but come on. It's
Sly Stallone did Rambo movies where he never uttered any dialogue. So if you're going in that direction, I will tell you don't.
Maybe they could do a father-son action movie with the Boz and Gronk.
There you go.
Right? You could have that going on there. No, Witten goes back to the Cowboys to get out of there. I could see entertaining Gronk being in the booth.
Oh,
because he's Gronk.
I think they're saying Greg Olsen's going to take the job.
Greg Olsen had interviewed for the job on Monday Night Football before when Witten got it. Between the two of them,
Do you think ESPN is spinning their wheels now? Do you think Gronk would be good at that?
Oh gosh, no.
No,
I think he'd
don't.
be terrible at it.
Terrible at it.
Well,
it'd be fun for like 2 weeks, and then when you need actual content and ability to carry you through, he would have none of it.
I think Gronk's more of the pregame guy.
Well,
that
could
pregame football studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's more of the taped bit where he goes out and spikes stuff in the city that he's in. Come on now.
Put him in the Booger Mobile, have him spit some spitballs at the guys.
Boy, you're not giving Arizona much credit for their education, right?
No, I'm not. Now, all that says...
Was Arizona, right?
Now, as much as we dog on him for sort of being goofy and dumb...
Oh, you say we, you mean you.
Yeah.
I tend not to dog on people who are much bigger than me and live in the same town, by the way.
Perception of everybody that he's kind of this big, dumb, goofy guy... But he's done some incredibly smart things,
yes.
and number one of those, the fact that he has banked all of his salary money and lived off of his endorsement money, that's unique as hell and incredibly smart. Mm-hmm. And now let's be honest, Gronk comes from a rather well-off family that owns a pretty sizable business, so that it's not like he needed that. He's surrounded by a lot of very smart people in his family.
Where does he rank locally in terms of athletes that have come out of Western New York, which is where we are here?
I've heard this talked about a little bit. I think right at the top.
Okay.
Right at the top, people have thrown Warren Spahn around, who's a Western New York native.
Well,
Bob Lanier.
Modern day, he's got to be number one, right?
Modern
era,
yes,
right?
No question.
He's got to be number one.
Absolutely.
He's a Hall of Fame player. I'm talking about Buffalo-born bread, if you will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're not talking, you can compare him to Bills. No, it's not a comparison.
Nope.
We're talking about Buffalo, born and bred. He is the
Patrick
best.
Kane is the other name that
Right.
is thrown around.
I would put Kane ahead of Gronk as far as.
Really?
Yes, I would.
I can't get there.
Oh,
I
no.
can't get there.
You know why I put him ahead of Gronk? Because Patrick Kane, I think it is harder to win in the National Hockey League than it is in the NFL.
Maybe.
It rested more on Kane's shoulders than it did on Gronk's shoulders.
Well, let's actually
frankly,
talk about this.
Because, he had Brady.
Let's talk about this.
And Kane had Taves. He had Duncan Keith, but Kane scored some huge goals. You look at internationally, Patrick Kane.
He single-handedly put Chicago back in the postseason this year.
Yes.
Himself.
He's unbelievable.
He's been unbelievable.
Yes. And I'm not saying Gronk's not unbelievable, but yeah, it's those two. I'd put Kane a slight nudge ahead of Gronk.
Yeah, but has Kane ever been the most dominating player at his position?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
For multiple years?
Yes.
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 Then it's got to be close then.
Number 1 overall pick in the NHL
Sure.
draft, and he's lived up to it.
Yeah.
If we had
Then
to
some.
redraft
Including
that Gronk draft,
championships, which
Yes.
you want to throw that in there as well too.
Cup winner.
and USA hockey, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Cup winner. I mean, Patrick Kane is he's one of the
All right.
best forwards, wingers of the modern era in the National Hockey League.
And
he might be
U.S. born.
It might be. I'm telling you, when his career's done.
Yeah.
When his career's done, he might be the best USA-born player.
I think that's right. All right. You sold me.
Which sounds crazy to say
sold
right
me.
now, but
Unarguably,
done, yes.
Gronk had ridiculous value to the Patriots. So
Correct.
that's sort of how I want to finish here. Where does it go from here? I mean, they've been able to play without him. They won a Super Bowl without him. They won, 14 games, 12 games last year? What was their record, 14?
Yeah,
I think it was 12.
Were they 11-5 in the regular
Doesn't
season?
matter.
What
Doesn't matter,
It doesn't
right.
matter. Right.
they won with
Most
him. They
useless thing. Right.
won with him. They've won out.
They
without
LeBron
him.
James him last year and let him sit out for half a year, and then they let him come back when it mattered, and
Yep.
it all still worked out. So clearly they know how to win without him, and they know how to build a team around his injury proneness and all of that, right? But now they've got to have a full season without him. Now they have to have, because let's just say this is Brady's last year for whatever reason, right? Let's just say this is going to be it.
You might not even go.
They have
go
done
back.
They've done nothing.
Correct.
They have done nothing on the offensive side of the ball to improve, replace. I mean,
Have
nothing.
you not learned your lessons?
No. But
Have you not learned your lessons that
Paul-
we have
Paul-
this conversation every year?
Paul, I got to
And
push back on you because I nobody followed free agency more than I did. I mean, I read so many damn tweets. I'm going crazy in my head still from it. But the Patriots were in this free agency. They were in on Adam Humphries.
Yep.
They were in on Cole Beasley.
they didn't get
were
him.
in, and they missed for whatever reason. Money, structure, fit. Brady's going to retire after this year, and the guy didn't want to come. Whatever it's going to be, they missed, and they were in. Because usually you're right. Usually and they did. They sat aside for 3 days.
But that doesn't mean they haven't done that in years past as well either.
But they didn't lose
So
Gronk
they'll
those
just
years.
shift their gears, go to the draft, use all their draft capital, trade up, move around, get up into the draft, draft a kid from Iowa.
That's never worked.
Who people say could be the next Gronk, and he might be the next Gronk.
They need to trade for AJ Green.
There is a tight end of that caliber in the draft, correct?
Yes,
Am I
TJ
correct?
Hawkinson from Iowa, yes.
So clearly that's going to be where people start to put him.
Right.
But is that even enough? When is the last time the Patriots drafted a wide receiver that was impactful that year?
When was the last time they needed that?
But my point is, if this is Brady's last year, if this is it, what are they going to do in the next 2 months to make this year work?
Well,
there's
but-
no more three-year window.
No, think about it beyond if this is Brady's last year, it's not a matter of what happens this year.
Oh, they don't
Because
care.
Brady can take any guy in the league and make him great. It's what happens beyond that.
I disagree with that. And here's why I disagree with that. He did it. He made his receivers great because Gronk was the attention of the defense.
No way.
Are you kidding me?
You're telling me that Gronk had more to do with it than Brady himself?
I'm saying Gronk had more to do with those receivers getting open. You think Julian Edelman right now, if they do nothing, is going to be one-on-one? anymore? No
Yeah.
freaking way.
Yeah.
No way.
And you know what? If he's not one-on-one, they'll figure out a way to get him one-on-one. Brady will figure out a way to get him the ball, or they'll find somebody else on the other side that Brady will get the ball. Brady has the ability, unlike any quarterback in ever, of taking a bunch of ordinary receivers. He's done it his entire career outside of Randy Moss and helping make them, I didn't say great receivers, I said making them good enough to help the team reach its end goal, which is Super Bowls.
I think he was able
when Aaron
to
Hernandez got on everybody's in his issues, everybody's like, oh my God, they were so dominant with Gronk and Hernandez. What are they going to do without him? Didn't have a factor.
Because they still had Gronk. I'm telling. I think Gronk
they won
was
with
a
Gronk
huge
before
factor.
they had Gronk.
Let me spin this another way because
running game.
We've talked about it with Gronk. Half of Gronk is blocking. Having Gronk and Dwayne Allen, both of whom are gone now, meant we can lose our left tackle every year. We can lose our right tackle every year. We can bring in 4 running backs who are all different because Gronk sealed the edge, and he just did. If you watch any tape on the Patriots, it's not an understatement what you said. He should be known more for that side of the game than even the big plays, the seam routes. But if they're losing all of his catches, all of his touchdowns, which there's so many touchdowns, by the way, if you haven't seen the numbers. I mean, my
touchdowns.
God.
Right.
In the postseason, touchdowns too, but
12.
Yeah,
yes.
It's nuts. But if they're losing both of their blocking tight ends and their left tackle and their right tackle, which they've all lost this year, all of them, gone.
Everything you're saying, Mike, makes perfect logical sense, but I will not go down the road of doubting what they have done forever, which is plugging the next guy. Remember, they drafted a tackle in the first round of the draft. He got hurt. He didn't play. So now you're going to draft a guy that nobody thinks you know anything about into the left tackle spot, and he'll probably be better than where they were last year. Or they're going to draft a tight end, and they'll figure out a way to get him to be good enough at that. All we need you to do is hold the edge, and he might be able to be good enough to do that.
You're trying to replace one of the all-time greats with good enough, and that's not going to be good enough.
And you didn't say that after Randy Moss left there?
When he was there, Randy Moss was not in his prime.
He was pretty darn close.
He was
to
pretty.
it, Kevin.
He was good, but he also had Gronk they had to pay attention to. I'm just saying, look at.
I think you guys are nuts to be doubting.
Well,
I think if there's nothing we've learned,
I think you're nuts. I think you're nuts to diminish Gronk's departure.
I'm not diminishing Gronk's
sure
departure.
You are.
They won
find someone good enough.
They won before he came. They won when he wasn't there. And you don't think they automatically are not going to be able to win because he's not there now?
I never said automatically. What I'm saying is he was such a huge factor on that team. I think it made every other player better because all the attention was on Gronk. Defensive coordinators, they weren't figuring, all right, how do we take Gronk away to make Brady throw to these other guys? That's what you had to figure out when you're playing the Patriots. Just when you face
and what happened
the
during
Bengals,
those times when he missed all those games?
They had other guys who filled in for a short period of time, Paul. Right? Short period of time, not for an entire season.
All it takes is to get him in the playoffs, Kevin.
They should get A.J. Green, shouldn't they?
Here's my point, and it puts a bow in this whole conversation. There's a big trade coming.
Has to be.
There's a huge trade coming, just like they did with Brandon Cooks a couple of years ago. They are eyeing other teams right now, and they are sizing it up, and it's because they missed. They missed on their guys, and they were in. They know they have to get better. So I agree with you. They've always made it work, but they themselves.
Sure.
We're aggressive. We're publicly aggressive in saying we're going after guys.
We're not done yet. We're not done yet.
But there is a move coming, and I think A.J. Green sounds just about right.
Yeah, right? I mean,
right?
They need someone
because
like
they don't
him.
need a guy who can get downfield. Brady can't even throw downfield anymore, right? They just need a guy who can fill in that maybe that Gronk seam route, a couple of out patterns, and then if Edelman can still do it, fine. Clearly, they don't think Edelman can do it all 16 games, though.
No.
Because they were going after Cole Beasley and Adam Humphries. And that's the Edelman role, or the Chris Hogan role, which was completely vacated last year. But there's moves to be made. It's coming. Get ready. The Patriots always make trades in June, July, and August. So just expect one of them to be pretty darn big, I think.
All right. We're going to argue some more when the show's over, but want to mention you that the Spot Track podcast is presented by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. They empower professional athletes, entertainers, with knowledge they need to make informed decisions about their finances and wealth so they keep it.
We're going to talk to these guys soon, by the way.
Yeah.
A couple of people from this company. It's their They do some really neat work with the athletes directly to sort of be creative. I mean, we talked about how Gronk has been saving his money and things like that. There's a lot of really neat ways that endorsements and taxes and all that stuff kind of get involved.
I'm fascinated to hear what they do with signing bonuses.
They've got certain people for different sports, so I want to hear all about the different ways that they handle the different athletes.
That'll be great. To learn more, visit morganstanley.com/GSE. Paul Peck's going to do so with all his cash. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, LLC, member SIPC. Thanks for listening to this edition of the SpotTrack.com podcast.